I have 30 more minutes left, which is enough time. I'm only going to read till 102 and I'll end the video here. There's not that much to talk about for chapter 3, because chapter 3 is just pretty much Frodo, Sam, Merry. The first half is Frodo, Sam, and Merry. It's Frodo, Sam, and Pippin, sorry. They're getting ready to leave the Shire. They come up with an excuse to leave the Shire. We're going to Buckleberry, right? They came up with an excuse, obviously. They end up leaving the Shire, and it's pretty much their journey to leaving the Shire. They walk, talk, camp, eat lunch, eat breakfast, and that's pretty much what chapter 3 is about. Not that much to talk about for chapter 3. And chapter 3 is boring. As the good half of Fellowship of the Ring is just them walking, talking, and meeting people along the way. That's pretty much what chapter 3 is about, man. And the other chapters too. Right? The sun was beginning to get low, and the light of the afternoon was on the land as they went down the hill. So far they had not met a soul on the road. This way was not much used, being hardly fit for carts, and there was little traffic to the woody end. They had been jogging along for an hour or more when Sam stopped a moment as if listening. This is not in the movie. All this is not in the movie, right? They were now on the level ground, and the road, after much winding, lay straight ahead through grass land sprinkled with tall trees. Like, no one cares about these descriptions, right? Outliers of the approaching woods. I can hear a pony or a horse coming along the road behind, said Sam. They looked back, but the turn of the road prevented them from seeing far. I wonder if that is Gandalf coming after us, said Frodo. But even as he said it, he had a feeling that it was not so, and a sudden desire to hide from the view of the rider came over him. It may not matter much, he said apologetically, but I would rather not be seen on the road by anyone. I'm sick of my doings being noticed and discussed. And if it is Gandalf, he added as an afterthought, we can give him a little surprise, pay him out for being so late. Let's get out of sight. The other two ran quickly to the left and down into Little Hollow, not far from the road. That's where Peter Jackson got the idea of Frodo and them getting off the road, obviously. Even though it's not exactly how it's written in the book, he got the idea of Frodo and the hobbits getting off the road because of the ring race, obviously. Right. Hollow, not far from the road. Right? Hollow, not far from the road. There they lay flat. Frodo hesitated for a second. Curiosity or some other feeling was struggling with his desire to hide. The sound of hoofs drew near. Just in time he threw himself down a patch of long grass behind a tree that overshadowed the road. Then he lifted his head and peered cautiously above one of the great roots. So Frodo hides behind it, hides in the roots of the tree, whatever it is, right? He hides, obviously. Round the corner came a black horse, no hobbit pony, but a full-size horse, and on it sat a large man. So this is one of the ring race, obviously, right? Just like so even though it's not the same, even though Peter Jackson didn't copy what's in the book, he got the idea off of this scene here, obviously. Round the corner came a black horse, no hobbit pony, but a full-size horse, and on it sat a large man who seemed to crouch in the saddle, wrapped in a great black cloak and hood, so that only his boots and the hide trunks showed below. His face was shadowed and invisible. When it reached the tree and was level with Frodo, the horse stopped. The riding figure sat quite still, with its head bowed, as if listening. From inside the hood came a noise, as of something sniffing to catch an elusive scent. The head turned from side to side of the road. This is one of the ring race, obviously. That's where Peter Jackson got the idea of the ring race. Remember when Frodo and Sam and them hide? They're like, get off the road. They hide, and you get the ring race approaching them and all that stuff. That's where Peter Jackson got the idea off this scene, obviously, here. Right, the head turned from side to side off the road. A sudden, unreasoning fear of discovery laid hold of Frodo. As he thought of his ring, he hardly dared to breathe, and yet the desire to get it out of his pocket became so strong. Remember how the reason why Frodo's desire to put the ring on is because the forces of Sauron, forces of Sauron can possess you, obviously. It can make you want to put the ring on, obviously. And if Frodo put the ring on, the Sauron's forces can sense where the ring is, obviously. And the eye of Sauron can see you, right? A sudden unreasoning fear of discovery laid a hold of Frodo, and he thought of his ring. He hardly dared to breathe, and yet the desire to get it out of his pocket became so strong that he began slowly to move his hand. Remember how in the movie Frodo was tempted to put the ring on, and Sam stayed his hand, and then they throw the mushroom in to distract the ring race. Yeah, because the ring is that powerful, man. The ring is so powerful that it can possess you and It can make you want to slip the ring on, obviously, right? That's how powerful the ring is, obviously. He felt that he had only to slip it on, and then he would be safe. The advice of Gandalf seemed absurd. Bilbo had used the ring, and I am still in the Shire, he thought, as his hand touched the chain on which it hung. In that moment, the rider sat up and shook the reins. The horse stepped forward, walking slowly at first, and then breaking into a quick trot. Frodo crawled to the edge of the road and watched the rider until he dwindled into the distance. He could not be quite sure, but it seemed to him that suddenly, before it passed out of sight, the horse turned aside and went into the trees on the right. Well, I call that very queer and indeed disturbing, said Frodo to himself, as he walked towards his companions. Pippin and Sam had remained flat in the grass and had seen nothing, so Frodo described the rider and his strange behavior, obviously. So Frodo saw the Black Rider, but Sam and Pippin did not see the Black Rider, even though they all hid, obviously, right? I can't say why, but I felt certain he was looking or smelling for me. The forces of Sauron were looking for the ring, obviously, right? And I also felt certain that I did not want him to discover me. I've never seen or felt anything like it in the Shire before, because I told you the hobbits are cut off from the outside world. So them seeing a ring wraith is shocking because they never seen a ring wraith before, pretty much, like he says here, right? I've never seen or felt anything like it in the Shire before. But what has one of the big people got to do with us? Said Pippin, obviously. And what is he doing in this part of the world? There are some men about, said Frodo, down in the South Farthing, that they had troubles with big people, I believe, but I have never heard anything like this rider. I wonder where it comes from. So they're wondering where the ring wraith comes from, obviously. The Black Riders, obviously, right? Begging your pardon, put in Sam suddenly. I know where he comes from. It's from Hobbiton, that this here Black Rider comes from, unless there's more than one. I know where he's going to. What do you mean, said Frodo sharply, looking at him in astonishment. Why do you speak up before? So Sam thinks the Black Rider comes from Hobbiton, obviously. What do you mean, said Frodo sharply, looking at him in astonishment. Why didn't you speak up before? I have only just remembered, sir. It was like this when I got back to our hole yesterday. Evening with the key, my dad's, he says to me. Hello, Sam, he says. I thought you were away with Mr. Frodo this morning. There's been a strange customer asking for Mr. Baggins of Bag End, and he's only just gone. I've sent him on to the Buckleberry. Not that I like the sound of him. He seemed mighty put it when I told him Mr. Baggins had left his old home for good. Hissed at me, he did. He gave me quite a shudder. What sort of fellow was he, says I to the gaffer. I didn't know, says he, but he wasn't a hobbit. He was tall and black-like and stooped over me. I reckon it was one of the big folk from foreign parts. He spoke funny. I couldn't say so. So Sam thinks the Black Rider is from what? Is from Hobbiton, I believe, right? But Frodo and Pippin are not sure, obviously. But it's obviously one of the ring wraiths because it says its face is invisible, and the only characters in Lord of the Rings whose faces are invisible are the Black Riders. So it has to be one of the Black Riders, obviously. I couldn't stay here anymore, sir. Since you were waiting, I didn't give much breathing to myself. The gaffer is getting old, and I'm more than a bit blind, and it must have been near dark when this fellow came up to the hill and found him taking the air at the end of our row. I hope he hasn't done no harm, sir, nor me. The gaffer can't be blamed anywhere, said Frodo. As a matter of fact, I heard him talking to a stranger who seemed to be inquiring for me, and I nearly went and asked him. I have 2 more pages left. Asked him who it was. I wish I had, or you had told me where about it before. I might have been more careful on the road. Still, there may be no connection between this rider and the gaffer stranger. Obviously, so Sam thinks that the Black Rider is the rider from Hobbiton that Sam's father met. Whereas Frodo and Pippin don't think the Black Rider is a rider that Sam's father met, I believe, right? Yeah. Still, there'll be no connection between this rider and the Gaffer Stranger. So Pippin thinks the rider that Sam's father met is not the same rider, obviously. Whereas the black, it's obviously one of the ringmates. It's one of the Black Riders, obviously. The forces of Sauron, obviously, right? So there may be no connection between this rider and the Gaffer Stranger, said Pippin. We left Hobbiton secretly enough. I don't see how he could have followed us. What about smelling, sir, said Sam. And the Gaffer said he was a black chap. I wish I had waited for Gandalf, Frodo muttered. But perhaps it would only have made matters worse. Then you know or guess something about this rider, said Pippin, who had caught the muttered words. I don't know, and I would rather not guess, said Frodo. All right, cousin Frodo, you can keep your secrets for the present. If you want to be mysterious, in the meanwhile, what are we to do? I should like a bite in the sup, But somehow I think we had better move on here. You talk of sniffing riders with invisible noses, that hasn't sold me. Yes, I think we will move on now, said Frodo, but not on the road, in case the rider comes back or others follows him. So Frodo's saying, look, we'll continue on our journey, but let's stay off the road because we need to avoid the Black Riders. We don't know who these beings really are. So Frodo and them don't really understand who the Black Riders are. Sam thinks it's one of the riders that met his father, and Frodo and Sam disagree. And they don't think there's any connection to the rider who Sam's father met and the one that Frodo saw on the road, obviously, right? Which is obviously the Black Rider is obviously one of the ring wraiths, obviously. And Frodo's telling them, okay, let's stay off the road if we're going to continue our journey. See? Yes, I think we'll move on now, said Frodo, but not on the road, in case that rider comes back or another follows him. We'll have to do a good step more today. Buckland is still miles away. So Frodo and them are heading to Buckland, obviously, right? The shadows of the trees were long and thin on the grass as they started off again. The shadows of the trees were long and thin on the grass as they started off again. They now kept a stone's throw to the left of the road and kept out of sight of it as much as they could. But this hindered them, for the grass was thick and tussocky, and the ground uneven, and the trees of J.R.R. Tolkien's dumping you with what detailed descriptions, obviously, that nobody cares about. They now kept on a stone's throw to the left of the road and kept out of sight of it as much as they could. But this hindered them, for the grass was thick and tussocky, and the ground uneven, and the trees began to draw together into thickets. The sun had gone down red behind the hills at their backs, and evening was coming on before they came back to the road at the end of the long level over which it had run straight for some miles. Blah, 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 right? At that point, it bent left and went down into the lowlands. You gotta get used to this influence, man. It's crazy. At that point, it bent left and went down into the lowlands of the Yale, making for Stock. But a lane branched right, winding through a wood of ancient oak trees on its way to Woodhall. That is the way for us, said Frodo. Not far from the road meeting, they came into the huge conk of tree. It was still alive and had leaves on the small branches. Right. That it had put out round the broken stumps of its long fallen limbs, but it was hollow and could be entered by a great crack on the side away from the road. The hobbits crept inside and sat there upon a floor of old leaves and decayed wood. They rested and had a light meal, talking quietly and listening from time to time. Twilight was about them as they crept back to the lane. The west wind was sighing in the branches, leaves whispering. Soon the road began to fall gently, but steadily into the dust. A star came out above the trees in the darkening east before them. They went abreast in step to keep up their spirits. After a time, this is all useless information. It was pretty much Frodo and Sam, their journey to Buckland and eventually to Bree and Rivendell and all that stuff. So they're on the Shire. They're on the borders of the Shire. They meet. Frodo and them. They hide. They hide from the road, obviously. The Black Rider shows up on the road. He senses the presence of the ring. Frodo's tempted to put the ring on. And then the Black Rider ends up leaving. And then Sam thinks the Black Rider is the one that met his dad in the Shire. Whereas Pippin and Frodo, Pippin disagrees and thinks there's no connection to the Black Rider and then the rider that Sam's father met. That pretty much sums up what I read so far, right? Whereas all this information about them eating breakfast and describing all this, the landscape of the trees, no one cares about that stuff. Hence why Lord of the Rings can be a drag. Because J.R.R. Tolkien drags on with his descriptions. It's fucking crazy, man. Talking about describing the trees, the grass, the sunset. No one cares about that, man. Hence why the book is pretty boring for me personally, obviously. Right. Twilight was about them as they crept back to the lane. The west wind was sighing in the branches. Leaves were whispering. Soon the road began to fall gently, but steadily, into the dusk. A star came out above the trees in the darkening east before them. They went abreast and in step to keep up their spirits. After a time, as the stars grew thicker and brighter, the feeling of disquiet left them, and they no longer listened for the sound of hoofs. They began to hum softly, and the blah blah blah, who cares, right? As hobbits have a way of doing as they walk along, especially when they are drawing near to home at night. With most hobbits, it is supper song or bed song, but these hobbits hum the walking song. So Frodo and them are singing songs, obviously, right? Though not, of course, without any mention of supper and bed. Bilbo Baggins had made the words to a tune that was as old as hills and taught it to Frodo as they walked in the lanes of Water Valley. and talk about adventure. Upon the hearth the fire is red, beneath the roof there is a bed, but not yet where are our feet. Still around the corner we may eat meat. This is not in the movie, by the way. A sudden tree or standing stone that none have seen but we alone. Tree and flower and leaf and grass, let them pass, let them pass. Hill and water under sky, passing by, passing by. Still around the corner there may wait a new road or a secret gate. And though we pass them by today, obviously, right? Tomorrow we may come this way and take the hidden paths that's run towards the moon or to the sun. Apple, thorn, and nut and slow. Let them go, let them go. Blah blah blah. Right? No one cares about these songs. Sand and stone and pool and dell. Fare you well, fare you well. Home is behind, the world ahead, and there are many paths to tread through shadows to the edge of night until the stars are all alight. Then world behind and home ahead. We'll wander back to the home in bed. Mist and twilight, cloud and shade. Away shall fade, away shall fade. Fire and lamp and meat and bread. And then to bed, and then to bed. So Frodo and them are singing a song that Bilbo taught them, obviously, right? Did Bilbo teach them this? Yeah, Frodo and the hobbits are singing a song that Bilbo sang. Bilbo taught them, obviously. Again, this is all useless, boring information, obviously. So chapter 3 is pretty much their journey. I'll mention this briefly when I finish reading. I'll read. How much more pages is what? Yeah, so tomorrow I'll read another. I'll finish chapter 3 tomorrow. I'll read a good 11, I don't know, 9 pages, and I'll be done chapter 3. So I'll read the remaining half of 102, and I'll start at 103 tomorrow. The song ended, and now to bed, sang Pip in the high voice. Hush, said Frodo, I think I hear hoofs again. So now Frodo hears those hoofs again, right? They stopped suddenly and stood as silent as tree shadows listening. There was a sound of hoofs in the lane, some way behind, but coming slow and clear down the wind. Quickly and quietly they slipped off the path and ran into the deeper shades under the oak trees. Don't let us go too far, said Frodo. I don't want to be seen, but I want to see if it's another Black Rider. Very well, said Pippin, but don't forget the sniffling. The hoofs drew near. They had no time to find any hiding place better than the general darkness of the trees. Sam and Pippin crouched behind a large tree bole, while Frodo crept back a few yards towards the lane. It showed gray and pale, a line of fading light through the wood. Above it the stars were thick in a dim sky, but there was no moon. The sound of hoofs stopped. As Frodo watched, he saw something dark pass across the lighter space between two trees and then halt. I'm on page 103 and I'll end my read along here. So very briefly, what did you learn from chapter 3? The first half of chapter 3 is pretty much Frodo, Pippin, and Sam. They're getting ready to leave the Shire, obviously. He's waiting for Gandalf to return. Gandalf never returned. He celebrates his birthday and also Bilbo's birthday in honor of Bilbo, obviously, even though Bilbo left like 17 years ago. Sam, Frodo, and Pippin leave the Shire. It's pretty much J.R.R. Tolkien drags on with describing the land, the sunset, the grass, trees. And eventually, in a few days, Frodo tells Sam and Pippin to get off the road. They hide. Obviously, Frodo sees his Black Rider approaching. Obviously, he's right. It's the forces of Sauron. It's one of the ring wraiths. Obviously, it's drawn to the presence of the ring. Obviously, Frodo's tempted to put the ring on, but he doesn't put the ring on. The Black Rider goes away. Sam and Pippin don't know that the Black Rider is there, but Frodo knew the Black Rider was there. They're curious as to what this Black Rider is. They don't know it's the forces of Sauron yet, or one of the ring wraiths. But it's obviously one of the Black Riders because it says an invisible face. Obviously, so it's one of the Black Riders. Sam thinks it's one of the riders that his father spoke to in Hobbiton or in the Shire, whatever it is. But Pippin just thinks that there's no connection to that Black Rider and the rider that Sam's father spoke to. Obviously, they continue on their journey to Buckland. Obviously, right? That says in the book. J.R.R. Tolkien describes the trees, the sunset, the lands, and all that stuff. Useless information. Frodo and Sam sing a song that Bilbo taught them, obviously. And after they sing this song, they see it. Frodo and them hearing more stomping hoof noises, and Frodo believes it to be another Black Rider. But again, Sam, Frodo, and Pippin are not sure what this Black Rider is. They don't know if it's one of the enemies of Sauron. They're ignorant at this point, obviously. And that pretty much sums up what I read for chapter 3. Because all the information about J.R.R. Tolkien describing lands, I'm not going to describe all that because that's boring. As no one cares about the description of the lands and all stuff. Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for tomorrow. I will finish off chapter 3. I only have a good 9 pages left. I'll be finishing off chapter 3, which is 3 is company. And then chapter 4 is shortcut to mushrooms, obviously. I think that's where they meet Farmer Maggot, I believe. Shortcut to mushrooms is when they meet Mary, if I remember. It's chapter when they meet Mary. Obviously. Because Frodo, Sam, and them are going to Buckland, obviously. And that's where they meet Mary. And then they meet the Farmer Maggot, Mr. Maggot, and then later on they meet Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil is an interesting character in the book, man. He sings all these songs and then. Tom Bombadil is what chapter? Let me check here. Right. Where are the table of contents? Okay. Where's Tom Bombadil? Yeah. Tom Bombadil is 4 chapters from now. So at the end of the month, I'll probably get the Tom Bombadil chapter. So Tom Bombadil is pretty much one of the guys who's not affected by the ring. He's not tempted by the ring, obviously. But he also doesn't really care about the ring. He's an interesting character. He sings all these songs. He has his wife or daughter, Goldberry. I don't remember. But Tom Bombadil chapter, you're looking at an interesting chapter for that. By the end of this month, I should be around the Tom Bombadil chapter. Because tomorrow I'll be finishing chapter 3, which is 3's company, and I'll be moving on to Shortcut to Mushrooms. That's where Peter Jackson got the idea of Shortcut to Mushrooms. When Frodo, Sam meet Merry and Pippin, they get the mushrooms, and then the Black Rara shows up and they hide. That's where Peter Jackson got the idea of shortcut to mushrooms, obviously. So I'll babble on for a good, I don't know. I have 8 minutes left. About 9 minutes, 8.5 minutes left, whatever it is. I can babble on for the remaining. I might as well take up the phone, right? Take up the time on my phone. Upload this video, take a shower, go to the store, get beer smokes, order some shawarma, and enjoy the show. Obviously. I'm going to keep saying this. I'll end it off here. I already gave you a brief summary of what I read so far in chapter 3. So, my book, Last Over Zanes, will be one book, like this, right? It'll be one book like this, and it'll be sold in 3 volumes. I'm selling the print for $100. It'll be hardcover, sold on Amazon, and the ebook will be sold for $22. Ebook will be sold for $22, and that way I make a nice profit for my ebook as well as my print, because I need to make a lot of money for that, obviously. Right? That's what my prints will be sold for. What? Right? I forgot to mention this is part 3 of my video, by the way. But I already mentioned my part 2 and part 1, so you'll know that this is part 3. But this is part 3, by the way. Just for the record, obviously, if you're skimming through, obviously, right? It's part 3. I told you, for my book sales, you're looking at worldwide international fame. Me and my wife are going to feel on top of the world. You're looking at crazy worldwide fame for my book sales. Remember how you got that crazy buzz when Harry Potter got released at the dawn of the 21st century? Well, picture something 2 to 3 times crazier now. You're looking at the whole English world going crazy about. The people who don't speak English, they won't be able to read my book, obviously. But the English-speaking world's going to go crazy about my book. You're looking at 1 billion plus people, man, going crazy about my Last Over Zanes book. Because you're looking at the best story ever told. People are going to ask me and wife for autographs, for pictures. The people who have the print are going to ask me and wife to sign their books, obviously, when they see me, if they happen to have their book in hand. And the ones who buy the ebooks are all going to ask me and wife for pictures. Me and my wife are gonna be famous celebrities. I'm gonna be a famous author, a famous fantasy author, and I'm also gonna be a famous movie star when I start SkySource. Me and my wife are gonna be famous movie stars. Those actors are gonna be famous movie stars. Even the minor ones are gonna be famous movie stars. As you're looking at the best story ever told. Mark Human, I don't want to be cocky. Once you read my book, you will find out for yourself. You'll find out how amazing my Last of Us story is. You're looking at the best story ever told in motion picture. You're looking at an amazing story. I keep saying that. Last of Us is the best story ever told in motion picture. Right? And by the way, Return of the King is what? Return of the King is the shortest of the 3 books, by the way. You know how the movie Return of the King is the longest? You read the books, Lord of the Rings Return of the King is actually the shortest of the 3 books. Because you have like a good... The book is only a good like 360, 370 pages. I'm about halfway through the book. And the rest of the book is the appendixes. Like an epilogue of what happens after Lord of the Rings and all stuff. As Fellowship of the Ring, this book here is the longest of the series. Fellowship of the Ring is actually the longest of the series. Two Towers is the second longest, and Return of the King is the shortest. And the rest of the book is the appendix, obviously. And to all you guys who haven't read the book, you guys got some insight of what the book is about, because I'm doing a read-along of Lord of the Rings. So to all you Lord of the Rings fans, you guys are obviously happy, because I'm doing a nice read-along for the Lord of the Rings series. I love it when Ivan reads my favorite book, because the Lord of the Rings fantasy nerds are fucking crazy, obviously. They love it when I read Lord of the Rings, obviously. Who better to read Lord of the Rings than fucking Ivan? His videos are so fucking interesting. I love it when Ivan reads Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Even me myself, I'm enjoying the book a lot more when I read it out loud. It's a lot more interesting when I read the book out loud. Whereas when I read it in my head, it could be a bit boring. I'm saying it could be a bit boring. I have a good like 3.5 minutes left, around there, right? I don't know, 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left on my phone. We'll babble on for 3 minutes, and I'll shut this camera off. I'll upload the video, take a shower. I haven't showered yet. Go to the store, get beer, smokes, order some shawarma, and enjoy the show. I might watch some YouTube videos. I'll go to bed after that. Right. Yes, Mickey says, so all you book nerds out there, if you think Lord of the Rings is amazing, wait till you read my book. You're looking at a better trilogy than Lord of the Rings. You're looking at the best fantasy book ever written, man. Best fantasy book ever written. I'm going to keep saying that. Last of Us is the best fantasy book ever written. It's not the best book ever written. You can't compare other genres. It's the best fantasy genre ever written. Right? It's the best fantasy genre ever written. Obviously, right? Best fantasy genre ever. Best fantasy book ever written. That's how good my Last of Us story is. And me and my wife are gonna experience a crazy fame. I was like, I'm gonna end off with this. I was like, I'm gonna keep on saying this, World. The money that me and my wife make for Last of Us, my book sales, we never have to work again. I don't even have to put in all that work and start SkySource. The money that I make for me and my wife is more than enough to live off for hundreds of years. I never have to work again. Me and my wife never have to work again. I can just build my rooftop condo. So the only if I didn't start SkySource, the only glory you would witness is a trends online. That's it. Obviously. Hence, because me and my wife are not making any videos, zero. I'm not making any videos on my SkySource channel. Me and my wife do not have to work ever again with the money that I make for Last of Us. Hence why you better stop taking for granted, as I don't even have to put all that work and start SkySource. But I want to start SkySource because I don't want me and my score to be for nothing. And what better way to witness the amazing glory of God than seeing Ivan and VJ big budget movie, especially a story like Last of Us looking at the best story we told in motion picture. Because me and my wife will make billions, we can fund the movie ourselves. Me and my wife will be the bank pretty much. We don't need to take a loan for the bank. Me and my wife are the bank. We're the one funding our own movie project and paying all the actors millions of dollars, accommodating them, feeding them, spoiling them, paying the crewmen their nice 6-figure salary. We're pretty much the fucking bank, because that's how rich. Me and my wife are so rich, we're gonna be the bank, man. We're gonna be funding our own movie. Obviously, we're gonna be so rich. You know how? I'll end off with this. You know how when you watch Iron Man, Tony Stark is so rich. He's a multi-billionaire. You see his nice condo, his super advanced. He's super advanced with their condo. Well, look, think of a condo like that for Meanwhile's condo. You're looking at something top notch. Meanwhile, if we're gonna be rich like Batman and Iron Man, we're gonna be so rich. High tech like condo, 100 whatever their condo. It's gonna be top notch. That's why those actors are gonna bang their ass off because they're gonna experience my condo, my luxury jet, my yacht, limo driver, all that stuff. That's why they're lucky chosen for you. And that's why me and my wife are gonna feel on top of the world. They're just looking at crazy fame for the movie, for the book sales, crazy worldwide fame, crazy Harry Potter, and even crazier fame for the movie. As me and my wife will be famous movie stars, and I'll be a famous author. Me and my wife are never gonna look. We're never gonna look back. We're gonna totally forget about our old life because now we're living life. We're feeling on top of the world. This is it for Ivan the Mayor. Hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for tomorrow. I'll continue finish off my chapter 3, Read Along for Lord of the Rings. It's Ivan the Mayor signing out. Peace.